We begin the 13th chapter. Continuation of chapter 12, speaking about the Beinoni. We're going to go into a more precision in understanding the makeup of the Beinoni and the challenge. But we begin with the words that our sages use and how exacting their words are. In chapter 1, we quoted from the sages in the Talmud that they said by the Beinoni, this intermediate person who's not a righteous person, doesn't have mastery of the inner workings of the heart and of the mind. Only is it's not just only, but having mastery over thought, speech, and action, the garments of self-expression. So the Beinoni, the term that the sages use in the Talmud, is zev v'zeh shoftan, that there are two judges in the Beinoni. Remember, in the righteous, there aren't two judges. There's only one, called the godly soul, because the animal soul has been transformed by the complete tzaddik completely. By the incomplete tzaddik, not completely. Right? Now, what do you mean two judges in the person? It doesn't say there are two rulers in the person, but two judges. Initially, we had a metaphor of two kings who want to wage battle to conquer the city. And that was a metaphor to understand ourselves, that we have two inclinations or two complete beings, animal soul, godly soul, that are two kings vying for rulership, right? But the term, that was a metaphor, but the term that's used is two judges, not, you're not ruled by two rulers, meaning a good inclination and an evil inclination, right? What does that mean? Why not? Because if you're ruled by two rulers, that means sometimes one ruler wins, sometimes another, right? If you look at history, not Jewish history in particular, right? It's all about, this nation conquered this nation, this king conquered that king, and then sometime later was reconquered, back and forth and so on. And that's the way of the land. And that's the way of the land in the human condition, one might think. But no, the term the sages use is judges. So what does that mean? What's the difference? It's simple. When you have a court and you have judges on the court, each judge gives its opinion. A judge, and we're talking about, more than one judge, right? Like in Jewish law, that the minimum of 3 judges in a court. There's a court of 23, the court of 71. But each judge gives its opinion. All it can offer is its opinion. The final ruling is based on, another judge can disagree. So you have one judge saying one thing, another judge disagrees, says another thing. Then you need, of course, to arbitrate, to come to a binding decision for a final verdict, right? So that's the metaphor, and that's the term that's used. There's two judges, not two rulers in the person. So what does that mean? It means as follows, in the analog, in me and you, as Jeff put, Beinoni in training, as we've said many times, that's what I hope we're all here working to become what we need to become, right? So it means as follows. There's a battle between the evil and the good within us. But the evil inclination is only stating its opinion that's in the left ventricle of the heart that goes from there to the mind to think, to think what's on the hearts, what's on your heart, right? You think about in your mind, right? So to contemplate it. But immediately that opinion, right, can be challenged. Now, by a completely wicked person, it won't be challenged because whatever your heart feels, well, that's reality and that's the truth, and that's what I'm going to be, leading my life by. I lead with my heart, right? Now, that's okay if your heart has been inspired by your mind, but you know, here we're not talking about that. We're talking about you have a desire in your heart. You have a desire for pleasure in your heart. That goes to your mind to think about it. So immediately, and we're talking about the Beinani over here, we're talking about you and I, Beinani in training, what happens next? Or in the Beinani at least, what happens next is that is challenged. That opinion by a second judge. Now, who's the second judge? It's the divine soul that resides in the brain, right? And it extends itself to the right ventricle of the heart where the good inclination finds itself, right? So now we got two opinions over here. So we got to arbitrate. Who's going to win? Who's going to win this battle? So the final verdict is rested on the arbitrator. And who is that? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The only one, blessed be He, God. Because He aids the good inclination. Right? He aids that man's evil inclination to gather the strength. How? Because God gives it that extra edge that it can overcome. And this is the idea that the divine light illuminates the divine soul. And therefore it gains superiority and mastery over the folly, the foolishness of the evil inclination. And that is the idea of a little bit of light pushes away a lot of darkness. Right? Now, even though you've pushed away that darkness, God is the arbitrator. He gives our divine soul an extra measure of light that it can push away that negative thought in the mind and not allow it to be cogitated, to be meditated upon, to be thought willfully. Now, that just means that what that means is you didn't eradicate the negativity in your heart. It still remains strong in your heart, right? It wasn't nullified, that desire for pleasure, for example, as an end in itself. What it means is it's merely lacking authority. The evil in the Beinani is powerless to have its opinion become the rule of law in you. Why? Again, because Hashem is there giving the divine soul that extra measure to prevail over the negativity. It's very powerful. Now, continues, the Alter Rebbe says, now in the first chapter, if you recall, we quoted at the very beginning of Tanya, b'Seif Gimel the Nida, we learn, Tanya means that we've learned in the teachings of Abraisa at the end of the third chapter of Nida. We might say that a person is given an oath before they come into this world, that you should be righteous and not to be wicked. Right? And then we learned that if the entire world tells you that you are righteous, you should consider yourself Karasha, like an evil person, like a Rasha. Now we can understand this statement. The whole world is telling you you are righteous. Oh, you're amazing. You're the guy. You're wow. Right? And in a meaningful way, that you're an amazing person, that you are such a, master, and you're righteous. You are righteous. So how should you look at yourself? Ki Rasha, like a Rasha. Now it doesn't say look at yourself like you're wicked, that you are wicked, but you're like the wicked. In other words, consider yourself only a Beinoni at most and not righteous. Just because people are saying that you're righteous. Why would people say you're righteous if you're not righteous? It's because the righteous and the Beinoni on the surface seem the same. What do I mean by surface? Your behavior, your actions, your words. The righteous and the Beinoni can appear the same because both are always doing the right action and expressing themselves appropriately. And, okay, thought you can't see. So in those two areas, you can perceive that. And when a person is always doing the right thing and never saying a bad word, oh, right? Always saying the right thing. So that person, in your mind, you might think they're righteous. Now, we're speaking about now the Beinoni themselves. When that person is told, the Beinoni, oh, you're so righteous, don't view yourself as righteous, right? You should view yourself ki Rasha, like a Rasha, which means a Beinoni. Why the term like a Rasha? Because like the Beinoni is like the evil person in that there is harboring in the heart of the evil person and in the Beinoni feelings of lust, feeling of, pleasure seeking. Not in the righteous, those feelings are not there. There's no sense of self-fulfillment in the heart of the righteous, but in the Beinoni there is. In the Rasha and the wicked person there is. And even more so, not only that there is that, now it's true it doesn't come to expression in thought, speech, and action, but it's still there native in the heart. And not only that, the more a person drinks and eats over time and involves in mundane pursuits, that feeling in the heart not only doesn't vanquish, it gets stronger because it's not been transformed as it has with the righteous, with the tzaddik. So as a result of that, we've answered our first question in Tanya, like, how could you consider yourself as a wicked person? Torah tells us that you should, not consider yourself as wicked in order that you can serve God with joy. Because if you consider yourself wicked, that's really hard one on how to proceed in life and to be joyful. So the answer is, don't perceive yourself as that you are wicked in reference to the Beinoni, but you're like the wicked, meaning you're a Beinoni, not a righteous person, but you're like the wicked in the sense that you're not righteous, that the heart and the desires of the heart have been transformed only into positive, God-directed feelings of the heart. Your feelings of the heart, like the wicked, are desires for pleasure, comfort, materialism, lustfulness, and so on and so forth. But it's only a judge. It's not a ruler. It's a judge giving its opinion, and the Beinoni never follows it's that opinion, because there's another opinion that emanates from the divine soul. So that two judges. Now you have two judges, so you need arbitration. Who's going to win the judgment? Well, God sides with the divine soul, giving it extra light to overcome the darkness, and to a little bit of light of its soul will push away a lot of darkness. Powerful idea. That everybody thinks you're amazing, and humility stays with a person, and they know what's going on inside of them, and therefore in their own estimation, no, not so amazing. Just doing what I got to do. In other terms, if you were to put it into other terms. All right. Any questions? Let's see. Oh, John. Davida. Is a Baal Tshuva considered a BIT? No, not necessarily. Remember, the Beinoni has mastery at all times. A Baal Tshuva could be, first of all, could be a tzaddik. Okay. David, I see that you have a question. Eager to get your answer. Okay. Not necessarily. It doesn't have to be. It can be tzaddik. It can still be, because the tshuva we do, if you remember, the rasha is someone who's always filled with remorse. We do tshuva, we do penitence, and then we fail again and do it again. And again, right? So that not necessarily means a Baal Tshuva is a Beinoni at all. John, does the animal soul not grow stronger in the Beinoni over time, even when it provides permitted kosher activities such as water, perhaps more some food? Yeah, that's what the Alter Rebbe said. Exactly that. Think about it. You know, when we deal with a physical, mundane world, of course it affects us. The more and more we eat and drink and so on, which we have to do, obviously, the more we, day in, day out, are materialistic and not, attuned to the neshama, to the soul, and to, to godliness. So the struggle for the Beinoni continues. It's been so good for so long. Yeah, but you're feeding your animal soul. And by feeding the animal soul, literally just food that you need to survive, right? But it's feeding it. It's feeding the body. So it's not, it hasn't been transformed. Remember, by the righteous, they eat food. They're not eating food. They're eating faith and love and awe of God that's in the shape of food, or in the format, shall we say, of food. That's what they're doing. Just like a mother, when she feeds her children, she's not feeding food. She's feeding love. That's what a mother does for her children. She's feeding love. It happens to be in the context or in the form, in the shape of food. So likewise, the righteous, they're not eating food. They're eating the spark of God that is, their faith and love and awe of God. It happens to be in a form and a shape of food. That's what, that's what it happens to be. That's not how I eat. And that's not even how the Beinoni eats. Now, the Beinoni might be aware that that's what it is, but the tzaddik is not merely aware that, the food I have in front of me is really the spark of God, and they gotta like kind of get it, in the focus and the trance of it. And really, it's the spark of God. That's all it is an expression of God. No, they're living it. They are that. So they eat that way. At least the completely righteous, for sure, of that. So it's just, that's the only reality food is for the righteous. Well, that's not the reality of the food to the Beinoni. Food to the Beinoni is something that gives nourishment to the body. And hence, the body becomes, you didn't transform it into, what it ultimately is, a spark of God, godliness. The Beinoni, it's feeding his body, feeding his animal soul. So it becomes stronger as a result with time. Even though he, it's not getting stronger in the sense that he can't overcome it. He does. So overcame it yesterday, overcame it the day before, overcomes it here, and doesn't allow that judge to have its final opinion. Thank you, John. Ahuva, why does God choose to help some people more than others so that the godly soul prevails? Good question. Good question, Ahuva. I was thinking about that too. My understanding is like this. Here, let's put it in the context of the Beinoni. What does the Beinoni want? All the Beinoni wants is to overcome. All the Beinoni wants is not to allow the animal soul to have any dominion over him, right? Over her. No control. Doesn't want to be wicked for a moment. That's what the Beinoni wants. Meaning they want the help of God. So they get it. For those who don't want the help, let's take the other extreme. Let's take the other extreme. The completely wicked person. What's a completely wicked person? It doesn't mean Attila the Hun. It doesn't mean Hitler. It just means a person who just wants to fulfill their own desires. That's what life is all about. Which is a lot of people that walk the planet. They're not looking to fulfill what God needs from them. They want what they want. And that's life. Okay, can't always get what I want, but what am I seeking in life? To have the pleasure of life itself. I can't even believe in God that it comes from God. But God's there for me so I can have what I want in life. Yes, I pray to God because in the end I need his intervention at times to get what I want. That person doesn't have a contrite heart when they do something wrong because life is based on what they want. They didn't get it. Okay, they might be upset. Might be an unhappy camper. But they're not going to be full of remorse of doing the wrong thing, because then the right thing is only getting what you want in life. Okay, that's a very extreme, that's very extreme. I don't think most of us here are not like that, but a good portion, there's a strong portion of the world that is that way. I don't know if it's 20% or more, whatever, I don't know. So that person doesn't want the help of God. I mean, they want the help of God only in as much as they want it because they know that God is the ultimate source for everything. So therefore, they have to come on to him because they want to get what they want. That's all. Not interested in what God needs from them and wants from them. Not at all. So is God going to help them? They don't want God's help. Someone's coming to free you from prison and you want to stay in prison? So, can't help you. So we can see there how God's going to help one more than the other. You want God's help, you're going to get it. You don't want it, right? Hope that helps, Ova. Bella has a question. Can you interpret being like the wicked means always working on yourself? Yeah. Yes. Alice, can you consider yourself a Rasha, but not enough to depress you? So I in chapter 11, when we spoke about the Rasha, I said, hey, let's be honest. BIT means Beinani in training. What does that mean? It means we're not a Beinani. So if we're not a Beinani, what are we? You understand very well. We're chapter 11, but don't close the book and don't file for bankruptcy just because of Russia, right? And we explained to Russia, right? Someone who is evil, not it means that they have evil on them, means they have a stain on their soul that has not been cleansed properly. Because if they're cleansed properly by doing proper tshuva, then they can become righteous actually, or Meinani. So it hasn't been cleansed properly. Okay? Yeah. In today's Chumash and Rashi, speaking about Moshe Rabbeinu becoming the leader of the Jewish people and to bring them out of Egypt. So he says, Mani, what am I that I could do this? You know. So God says, it's not about you and what you're capable of. I'm going to be with you. It's about the mission. So if life is about me and what category I am and what's my future and am I going to hell? Am I going to heaven? Right? So then it's all about me. So then you get really nervous and depressed. But if it's about the mission and God's with us in the mission, our mission is BIT Beinani and training through the Tanya that we're learning, and ultimately to do what God needs from us. That's our mission. Okay. So, in the category of a Rasha B'Toidle, not so bad. Could be worse. Could be worse. Alan, please share with us.
Hey, Rabbi. Good morning.
Good morning.
So this morning I was thinking of you, Rabbi Fine. I had this taiba for a Montreal bagel. Normally I'm fine with a New York bagel, being brought up in Brooklyn and what have you, but I just had the desire for a Montreal bagel. So of course I was thinking of you, Rabbi. So, but also the question I have today had to do with the Beinani, but with the development of that concept, Chabad is known for intellectual development and development of ideas, and I can't think of another word really from Tanya that really says Alter Rebbe all over it and Beinani,
Right.
So the question I have is that, many of these terms kind of develop, there was a development of Hasidus, it's just like, so the question I have, I guess, is that, is the concept of Beinani something that, that was already apparent in the Maggid of Mezerich and further developed and articulated by the Alter Rebbe, or was it something totally new and not anywhere else? There are other terms that, like Devekus and other things like this that are mentioned that are clearly not totally just associated with the Tanya that are present in so many Hasidic Sforim.
Right.
But Beinani, it's just like it has its mark all over it. So where does it come from?
So, ultimately, it comes from the sages in the Talmud that we brought in the first chapter that we just now mentioned. In Brachas, Tractate Brachas, Daf 61b, it brings down Beinani Zev Zeh Shoiftan. It brings out two levels of a Rasha, two levels of the Tzaddik, and then the Beinani Zev Zeh Shoiftan is what we were discussing, that in the Beinoni there's two magistrates, two judges, but only one rule of law, and that is ultimately the the godly soul that ultimately rules. So the term is definitely in the Talmud, but you're right. The Alter Rebbe is the first one, to my knowledge at least. He's definitely the first and only one that has a whole book called Sefer Shebeinoni, 53 chapters to explain the Beinoni. No one before or after has done anything like that. So that is definitely unique. But the source of the idea is in the Torah. It's, as we will see when we get to chapter 17, the one verse in Torah that these 53 chapters is based on is for this thing of Torah mitzvahs is very close to you in your heart, in your mouth, in your heart to do. And we'll explain later that verse and understand how that verse is actually speaking about the Beinoni, is a verse about the Beinoni. So we have it in scripture, in the Torah itself, but there it's just in one verse that of course is written in shorthand, and we need the oral Torah to elongate it. So the Talmud does a bit of that, and the Alter Rebbe does a lot of that. And again, ultimately, to give us a full appreciation, understanding the Tuv Tam B'das in a real comprehensible manner, it's only the Alter Rebbe. Yeah, that is true.
Okay, so I'm hearing from you that in terms of Hasidic discourse and previous Sippurim, that it may be hinted at somewhere or other, but it's only brought into fruition in the Tanya. Is that what?
Yeah,
that's
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, beautiful. All right, folks. Reminder: TRC tomorrow 4:30. Reminder: in a few minutes we're going to start Rambam, and a reminder that every day we have 7 o'clock. We have Chassidus in the morning, 7:05 to be precise. Then we have around 8:30, 8:40, the Torah portion of the day with Chumash and Rashi. And then, of course, we're here every day, 9:30, for some more Tanya. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zuch and Kadeshim in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have an amazing, great day. Wonderful Wednesday.